Hello everyone! Welcome to your first day of UC 100, a class specially designed for all incoming freshmen at the University of Michigan. This class is the first of its kind, and over the course of 16 weeks, we will provide a strong background in the different identities that make up this great university's student and faculty population. As new students at the University of Michigan, you are guaranteed to come into contact with individuals from a variety of backgrounds and experiences that are different from your own. The goal of UC 100 is to prepare you for these experiences in an increasingly multicultural society. This semester, we will be discussing the influences and interactions of multiple social identities as they relate to our campus climate and cultural significance. A valuable portion of learning is through listening to and considering the perspectives of your peers, so this presentation will feature numerous viewpoints from current students at the University of Michigan. Remember to keep an open mind and an open heart, and that everyone is entitled to their own opinion. There will be plenty of times where both listening and challenging different notions will come into play this semester, and there is no right or wrong opinion. This week's topic focuses on the social identity of race, so let's get started. The first thing that we'll talk about are social identities, which are really the basis for all social justice work we'll talk about this semester. Social identities are essentially the different features that make up ourselves. What's important to remember about these identities, however, is that they are self-identified. Only you can decide how you'd like to identify for yourself and how you'd like others to identify you. These social identities also describe how we relate ourselves to others throughout the world. More than often, we group ourselves into predetermined categories. For example, my identities include being a white, working-class, heterosexual woman. However, this is not the whole story. We aren't defined by just a few social identities, but by many more different parts that I haven't listed here. You can't tell someone's religion, ethnicity, education, or many other features based on their appearance, so it is important to avoid making assumptions based on physical features or characteristics. It's also important to note that the chart that you see here is not a comprehensive list of all social identities. Size, nationality, sex, and many other descriptors are identities that are important to many individuals as well. Let's hear a little about what one of your peers had to say about social identities.
My social identities include being a woman, being a college student, being Christian, and being Italian. Those are just a few of my many identities that make up my beautiful self. And those identities don't necessarily hinder my daily activities, but they are present in my everyday life. And although you may not notice it, you do have identities, and those should be recognized and celebrated.
Bailey summed it up really well when she stated that these identities are present in our everyday lives. Whether you realize it or not, we all hold certain identities and privileges that affect us day by day. Let's take a short break. Take out a piece of paper and take a minute to think about how you define the different parts of yourself. Write down as many identities as you can think of. Are there any identities that you never realized you held? When you're finished, share a few of your findings with the people around you. As you all read for today, the history of race has had an important impact on the development of our country. Policies from decades ago still pervade cultural norms and the societal discrimination that remains in place today. Let's test your reading with a few questions. Number 1. Is race biological? The correct answer is no. However, many of our ancestors believed this to be true up until the 20th century. Race is a completely socially constructed concept, meaning that individuals and structures in our society have ascribed meaning and value to the different physical features of groups of people without any reason. This was done to create a social hierarchy that still remains in place throughout the world today. Number 2. How does the census define different individuals? This answer isn't so clear-cut. Descriptions and placeholders on the census continue to group together certain racial identities based on arbitrary features such as geographic location or language, creating a difficult decision for many Americans who have to choose which box to check to identify their race. Just recently, an option for biracial individuals was added, providing a small amount of support for racially ambiguous peoples. However, what about individuals who identify as Indian? Should they mark themselves as Asian? Middle Eastern? It's often a difficult decision to make for many Americans while filling out the census every 10 years. Finally, how have civil rights affected the way we live today? It can often be taken for granted how hard individuals during the civil rights movement in the 1950s and 60s fought to gain equal rights for African Americans in our society. Key events such as the Montgomery, Alabama bus boycott, the March on Washington, and Martin Luther King Jr.'s famous "I Have a Dream" speech all fought against a society with a long-established tradition of white supremacy. Racial movements such as this are important to remember and reflect on as we think about the changes that we have seen over the past 40 to 50 years. Now let's transition more specifically to how race plays a role on campuses such as ours. You may or may not have thought much about the ways that race plays out on our college campus since you only just arrived, but surely in your time here at Michigan, you will build your own opinions about these racial dynamics. Have you seen anything problematic occur surrounding race in your time here? Do you consider our campus diverse? These are questions you'll want to think about as we move forward this week and throughout this semester. Next, we'll be listening to 7 short perspectives from students just like you who all responded to the same question: what are your perspectives about the racial climate on campus? Listen carefully to the different viewpoints that these students have and take notes on certain ones that may stick out to you, make you think, or otherwise leave an impression. Why do you think this is?
Okay, so when I was applying to the University of Michigan, it was important for me to pick a university that had a lot of black people because I grew up in a community full of mostly white people and I wanted to know more black people. And so when I saw the pamphlets from the University of Michigan, I thought that there were a lot of black people here. But then I came here and I realized this is exactly like my home community. It's not really as diverse as the university says it is.
So in general, I feel it's a pretty good racial climate on this campus. Coming from where I came from in New York, like race was such a big thing. People were always talking about it and stuff, and it was kind of uncomfortable. But like here, like no one really brings it up. It's just like we're all students. We're all here doing our jobs, studying whatever. And it just really doesn't feel like a thing. I mean, sometimes people will make jokes or whatever, but it's usually good fun. So I really don't feel like there's a problem here.
So the racial climate on campus, I think that this campus likes to think it's very diverse, but it's not. I don't think it's as accepting as it likes to be because nobody tries to get to know each other. Everybody's really segregated. There's this race here, this SDS here, and I think that me being a biracial woman, that I sometimes feel like I'm left out, you know, that you don't fit in with one crowd or the other crowd because you're kind of mixed in the middle.
So the students at the University of Michigan, I feel, have a very strong motivation to make the university more, racially accepting. But at the same time, we also do recognize that there is a racial disparity within the university, and that action does need to be taken to make changes.
I've had very welcoming experiences, but sometimes I will be the only African American in some of my classes, and it can be awkward sometimes. Just noticing that you're the only one that's black in the classes, and sometimes people don't expect as much from you because of your color.
I think that the University of Michigan has a really racially diverse population. I live in Northwood 3, and in my community alone we have quite a few international students. We have quite a few students from Michigan, but we also have a huge mix of people from different states around the United States. And that's just my little part of Michigan, so as a whole I think there's a lot of diverse people with different backgrounds.
I think the racial climate, there's always room for improvement here. Not only here, but I think everywhere. We're still getting to know each other, I think, as as different races, and I think our relations can improve. We can be more accepting, both in class and outside of class. There are cliques and there are groups that sort of stick together, and I think there's an opportunity for us to merge and become one here as Wolverines here on campus.
So those were just a few perspectives from current students here at U of M. As you can see, there are many different perspectives that can be found around campus surrounding race. While some feel that race is not that big of an issue, others may feel left out or uncomfortable at times due to biases and prejudices found around campus. All of these feelings and more make up the University of Michigan's population, and these opinions are important to recognize and take into consideration as we begin to learn more about each other. As our focus on race on our campus continues, let me provide a few other statistics about the racial demographics of the student population. As you can see, only 14.2% of all students enrolled in 2010 identified as Black, with an even smaller 4.4% identifying as Latino. Compare these numbers to the 72% of students who identified as white or Caucasian in the same year. The following graphs demonstrate the large racial disparities even more memorably. Notice here that the University of Michigan has traditionally enrolled a disproportionately large number of white students, even higher than the national average throughout the 80s and 90s. Our school continues to enroll more white students than Ivy League schools such as Harvard, Yale, and Princeton even today. Next, notice how low the averages for Black enrollment are for the schools listed in this study. All of the schools included were found to enroll below the national average over the last 30 years. You may notice a rise in Black enrollment until about 2000. Does anyone have any idea why this might be? Around the early to mid-2000s, the University of Michigan halted the use of affirmative action in terms of enrollment. We'll be talking about this in a moment, but it is important to notice the sharp decline that has occurred over the past 10 years as a result of this ruling. Finally, in terms of Latino enrollment, it is quite obvious where our university falls. Michigan has historically enrolled fewer numbers of Latino students than many other private and public universities across the country, and has consistently not met the national average for Latino enrollment over the past 30 years. Why do you think this might be the case? A few other concepts you might hear about in the coming weeks and that are important to touch on are stereotype threat and affirmative action, which we have already briefly mentioned. Stereotype threat is a phenomenon that has been studied in students both in primary and secondary school, as well as in college. This psychological occurrence involves being at risk of confirming a negative stereotype about one's identity or group. An example could be women believing that they are not good at math because they are told so from a young age. Or, more in the context of this class, minority students performing worse on tests because of their internalized beliefs that they are not as smart or as prepared as other students in the room. These stereotypes can be particularly harmful in terms of academic performance and can have adverse effects on students from a variety of backgrounds. Affirmative action is another term which is important to recognize as we move forward. This policy takes factors such as race, gender, socioeconomic status, and other identities into consideration in order to benefit minority groups in terms of university enrollment and other professional settings. Many people consider affirmative action to provide an unfair advantage to certain individuals, while others believe that it is a valuable tool for increasing diversity standards in many different social settings. We've already touched on this, but does anyone remember if the University of Michigan participates in affirmative action? The answer is no. Our university banned affirmative action in 2006 after a lengthy debate about its positives and negatives, leading to a Supreme Court ruling. To this day, this ruling is continuing to be fought. Let's listen to what your peer Adam's perspective on affirmative action is.
So I'm very pro affirmative action.
I believe that diversity on a college campus is extremely important, especially for someone like myself who comes from a very homogeneous area in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, where almost everyone I grew up with was white. Coming to the University of Michigan, the larger amount of diversity allowed me to experience a lot of different people's cultures and their experiences growing up. Unfortunately, I don't think the University of Michigan is doing an adequate job to promote diversity on this campus, and I think that its numbers could be very much improved.
This is just one side of the story. On a scrap piece of paper, write down the different points about affirmative action that you know about or think are important. What are some things you want or need to learn more about surrounding the topic? Go ahead and share with a partner when finished. Now that you know much more about race on campus, let's focus on ways in which you can get involved and continue to work towards a more racially accepting campus. You may or may not have heard the term ally used before, but this is a term that we'll be focusing on for the next 16 weeks, so I'll try to provide you with a working definition. In classic social justice literature, an ally is defined as someone who works to be an agent of social change rather than an agent of social oppression. In other words, an ally is someone who works to make others feel included and welcome, instead of alienating or discriminating against another based on one or more of their social identities. You can be an ally in your words, expressions, and actions. It is important to note that everyone has a different definition of what an ally is. No one answer will be exactly the same. As you continue to learn about social change and allyhood, it is likely that you will begin to formulate your own opinions as well. Now let's take a look at how this student responded when asked what an ally personally meant to her.
So being an ally, I think, definitely means being able to sort of address any social justice issues that lie outside in the real world, and be able to build an inclusive community so that everyone, regardless of their social background or their social identity, feels comfortable within that setting and that surrounding. And a time when I saw allyhood take place was when there was a student being targeted for her racial background, and a bypasser kind of stepped in, addressed the situation, and really provided emotional support and kind of helped resolve it. So that's a personal case where I was able to experience allyhood.
What a great story! As you can see, allies are all around us if we look close enough. Even a simple hug can make the difference between a student who feels welcome or a student who feels targeted and segregated from the rest of campus. Think about your past experiences. Has there been a time where you have been an ally to a friend or a stranger? Can you remember a time when someone else was an ally to one of your social identities? How did this feel to you? Finally, here's just a small list of a few different ways that you can get involved and be an ally around campus. Being an ally is not about yourself. It is about supporting someone else. So remember to be there for your friends or those around you, to listen and not to do the talking. Remember to respect others and avoid passing judgment on the experiences of others, since we are all entitled to our own opinions. At the same time, asking questions in a non-confrontational way can be a great way to show interest and compassion for those around you. Just as well, if you see something that you or someone you're with feels uncomfortable about, say something. Racially insensitive jokes, drawings, etc. are not things to laugh at. By saying something, you can help to make the situation better for all those who are uncomfortable. We'll be talking about multicultural councils in just a moment, but lastly, I want to point out that you shouldn't be afraid to make mistakes. All allies do. Sometimes you might say the wrong thing or slip up a little bit, but this process is all about learning. Recognize your mistake, apologize, and move on. It happens to everyone, and as you continue to grow and mature, you hopefully won't make the same mistakes twice. You are all very lucky as students here to have access to a good number of resources surrounding race and other social identities right here on campus. Let's take a look at just 4 of the different offices you can turn to if you have questions or are looking for additional resources involving race and identity development. MESA, or the Office of Multi-Ethnic Student Affairs, is located on the 2nd floor of the Union right by the Rogo Ballroom. The purpose of this university office is to create, promote, and provide cross-cultural events, resources, and development for all students. Focusing on numerous social identities and social justice issues, MESA is a great resource to learn more about upcoming cultural events on campus. Feel free to stop by just to say hi, pick up some free candy, and check out what they have to offer. Trotter Multicultural Center is also a great place to hang out and celebrate diversity. Located on Washtenaw between South University and Hill Street, the purpose of Trotter is to promote a community that allows all persons to learn and grow as students. Trotter also prides itself on helping students learn to appreciate individuals of all backgrounds and experiences in a welcoming way. This building provides many great resources, such as free reservations to all registered student organizations for retreats, meetings, etc., audio and visual equipment, and their famous 72-hour study breaks during finals week. During this time, Trotter is open and provides lots of food, relaxation equipment, and an open and inviting space to both study and relax. If you've never gone, I encourage you to check it out. IGR, which stands for Intergroup Dialogues, and Common Ground, are 2 organizations on campus which also provide a large focus on social identity development. Through exploration in academic courses, research, workshops, and events, these social justice education programs are great resources for students who want to learn more about social justice issues. Courses here at U of M include Psych 122, or Intergroup Dialogues, which focuses on one specific social identity, be it race, gender, socioeconomic status, religion, etc., and studies it for an entire semester in a small class format led by trained student facilitators. Additionally, you can train yourself to facilitate your own dialogue in the future with Psych 310, and facilitate a group of 10 to 15 students in Psych 311 if you choose. Overall, the IGR Common Ground program is a fantastic resource to get involved around social justice and allyhood around campus. Diversity education, as a part of university housing, is also a great resource that can be found right in your residence hall. Each dorm or apartment community has 1 or 2 diversity peer educators, or DPEs for short, who are student staff members working to create a safe and inclusive community for all residents. For more information, let's take a look at this video created by previous DPEs from 2011.
Traditional decorations, $35. Custom printed flyers, $20. Authentic catering, $112. An unforgettable hall event? Priceless. There are some things residents just can't do. For everything else, there are multicultural councils and DPEs. Wait, multicultural what? In just one day after moving, they befriended an entire hall. It is said they once organized a multicultural fashion show with no clothes or models. They are the only facilitators to have dialogued expertly in complete silence. Their brilliant planning allowed them to host an amazing event with just $1. Their leadership is so contagious, they become heroes to residents. They are the most interesting multicultural council in the world.
I don't always impact my community, but when I do, it's with the Multicultural Council.
And I can be part of all that as a resident? Amazing! But who will help me get involved?
Diversity peer educators, or DPEs, assist in the development of a community that is socially just and comfortable for students of all social identities. DPEs work to strengthen the living learning environment by conducting educational, cultural, and social programs as advisors to the most interesting multicultural councils in the world. And they work hard every day to create change.
Hey DPs, how do you create change?
I create change by being open and friendly.
I create change by building close relationships with those I interact with on a daily basis and encouraging them to be their true selves.
I create change by taking small steps, having an open door, an open mind, and an open heart, and making sure I hear what everybody has to say.
I create change by building relationships with people in my community.
I create change by living, laughing, and loving out loud.
I create change by recognizing my own areas of growth and privilege, and by helping others and educating myself on areas I don't understand.
I create change by creating an environment that inspires people to share their skill, talent, and passion.
I create change by not only teaching by example, but learning from examples of others in different cultures.
I create change because I know that changing one person can change the world.
I create change by sharing my passion with others and simply just respecting people.
I create change by learning about other people's cultures and by talking to others and bringing them together.
I create change by working with youth, sharing our experiences and finding ways in how we can impact the world.
I create change by being concerned and considerate of other people's stories and journeys.
I create change by embracing myself and allowing others to embrace who they are.
I create change by doing something small every day, because I'm not free unless we're all free.
I create change by laughing, because everybody laughs in the same way.
I create change through Ubuntu, the belief that I am who I am because of who we all are.
I create change by living by the golden rule, treating others the way I want to be treated.
I create change by advocating the importance of sharing and valuing everyone's unique story.
I create change because I know that the work I do today can influence the world I live in tomorrow.
Yo creo cambio al recordar que mi ser es revolucionario. I create change by remembering that my very being is revolutionary.
As you can see, we are lucky enough to have many individuals on this campus who continue to work and support students in many different ways. DPEs additionally work with multicultural councils, which can be found in each living community. These councils function as a voice for residents and provide events and activities to the community centering around intercultural experiences and the celebration of everyone's unique characteristics. Check out the housing website at housing.umich.edu or ask your resident advisor for more information. We've thought about a lot of different concepts today and covered a wide range of topics. I'd like to leave you all with a few different questions for discussion as we move into the last bit of class. Please get together in small groups to share a few of the different ideas that stuck out to you today and to discuss the following questions. Number 1. Where do you see race playing into your daily life? Do you find yourself facing more privilege or oppression based on these social identities? Should race be a factor in higher education admissions? Why do you think so, or why not? How will you work to be an ally and recognize the role that race plays in your relationships with friends, family, and your peers? And finally, how can you work to make everyone feel respected in class, in your living community, and out in the world? I hope that this lesson has been informative and engaging to you all. As a last word, I'd like you to continue to remember to challenge your previous beliefs and also to value the opinions of others. We are all Michigan Wolverines, so let's be sure to respect and grow as leaders in the best. Go Blue! I'd also like to give a special thanks to all those who lent their time and perspectives to this presentation. Have a great day!